I am recording, just so you know, I started the recording. Well, hey, welcome everybody to another NCLUG DOT OpenX Week presentation. So OpenX refers to all the different Bentley Connect Edition brands. And so NCLUG's proud to partner with the NC Department of Transportation to bring you these updates. The session today will be on utilities, but first, before we get started, just some housekeeping rules. So this is a webinar presentation, so all attendees will be muted. At any time during the webinar, you can submit your questions to the chat box, and as time allows, NCLUG will field the questions to the presenter and during the Q&A session at the end of the presentation. The chat function is for the question and answers, and if you want to make comments, please chat directly with that person as opposed to just putting it in the chat. This will allow us to easily see the questions being asked and act as a record for attendees to refer back to in the chat box. We will be recording this webinar and sharing the link after the event. NCLUG is offering PDH credits to those who have registered on the website for this event. Those will be presented in the chat box at the end of the session. And then we'll also be looking to send those out probably in an email next week, probably once we have all of them done. So we'll send them out to all attendees next week. But now I'd like to go ahead and turn this over to our presenter from utilities today, John Larry.
Okay, thank you, Patty. And for those of you that don't know me, my name is John Lowry. I work with the NCDOT Utilities Unit. I'm a senior engineer with the Central Region. I'd like to welcome everybody and say good afternoon to everyone for this afternoon session of OpenX ORD Utilities. Basically, a little bit about me. I've started working with a private engineering firm many years back. I have over 26 years with DOT, the bulk of it being in roadway design unit, and some of it being in the utilities unit for approximately the last 4 years. What we would like to do today is provide you with a little bit of background on utilities and how we are advancing to use ORD. We plan to also have a short session involved in this today with training manuals, and current status, along with how we're going to move forward. Next. Utilities and providers. I always bring this up because a lot of people don't understand that how big utilities are and how much of an impact they have on DOT projects. And this is just an oversight. I don't want to bore everybody with it, but the utility unit currently has to deal with a bunch. And I ask everybody all the time, how many? Nobody really has a good idea. I've heard numbers of a couple hundred. You know, you think we've got 100 counties in the state of North Carolina. Maybe there's at least 1 or 2 or 3 per county. But we deal with Duke, we deal with Charter, all these, we deal with all the municipalities, city, county, and state properties. We deal with all the natural gas pipelines, anything that is involved in the state, and anything that is part of any of the DOT projects. So we have a lot, and you know, one of the most current challenges is with the 5G, with Verizon and other 5G outlets, where they're putting the utilities, small towers on the edge of a road on a light pole, and it's becoming a major effect for our projects. Next. There's 3,400 utility companies that are regulated by the state of North Carolina. That's approximately 11 billion. And what I want to point out about this is each project can contain 10 to upwards of 20 utility owners or more. What we do is we encompass all those utility owners that will do their plans. They provide their own designs, and we will try to formulate that with the use of coordinators to create our utility by other plans. The utility by other plans consist of all these plans that they provide. Some of them, unfortunately, are CRAN drawings. We're trying to get everybody over to using CAD. We're trying to get everybody to go maybe towards ORD. We think that's the thing of the future. I know a lot of people on here think it's the same way. One of our issues that we're running into right now is how to deal with the coordinators that are dealing with all these municipalities and utility owners in the field when we may have multiple number of utility owners involved, and that one coordinator has to put it together and provide a set of plans that we can turn in for final design. Project-wise, we'll be using that mainly. We're trying to figure out the best path forward. We plan on doing project-wise in a non-managed, there you go, Oak, and a managed workspace. What this will allow us to do is farm stuff out to these individual utility owners, get their designs back and incorporate them all as one for utility by other plans. We also deal with the utility construction plans. Most of the utility construction plans will be involved with the wet utility, so we have water, sewer. Utility by others will combine all the electrical, power, communication, and natural gas. Next. Right now, one of our challenges is that we have, as a utilities unit, have outsourced all of our designs over the past several years. Doing that, we have a very limited number of employees that have a strong background in CAD. Some people have dabbled in it. Some people worked in it, like myself, for 20 plus years. And others are learning from scratch right now as we try to figure out the best way to move forward with ORD. Currently, we're using for final turn-in plans. It's an old, outdated Bentley water sewer program. That program has not been supported for many years. We're using, we have currently in there about 2,900 levels. That's a lot of levels to deal with. And we really didn't have any use or any ability to go into 3D modeling. A lot of manual stuff was required to get the designs to work, and it didn't really give us a lot of flexibility for our utility designs. Next. Basically, what you see here was what ORD is providing us. ORD is providing a 95% reduction in the level count. So we're going from 2,900 down to 126. That's going to make it a lot quicker, a lot easier, and hopefully provide us a faster means of doing our design. We plan to basically use all the modeling. We're trying to obtain all the information we can to use the 3D modeling for existing and proposed utilities, as well as doing the horizontal and vertical alignments all in ORD. And we are hoping to be able to transition to that maybe sometime late summer. Like I said, right now we are currently using the SS2, SS4 for final turn-in, but we hope to move forward to the ORD workspace entirely for production. And what you see here on the right side of the screen, basically, in the past, we always had a breakdown of what was the state's cost, what was a municipality cost, or what was a betterment. A betterment is any kind of upgrade when the utility owner owns the product and we're going to have to replace it in like kind. It's standardized, and they pay a percentage or we pay all of it. For a betterment is something that they want as an advancement, which may be moving up to from a 12-inch line to a 24-inch line. They would have to pay the difference. So we had to have all these different line styles to account for that. We might have 3 or 4 municipalities on a project. Doing so, it increases the number of levels, it increases the confusion, and makes it harder to basically get a final design. Next. As I said, the current version of ORD we're using in our workspace is involved with the 10.10.21 release 1. That is currently what our workspace is set up for. That is what we are doing all our training and testing in. And that is what we're going to move forward with for current testing and beta use right now. We eventually hope to get some bugs out and update our workspace so that we can use the upcoming 10.10.20, which is the release 2. And it just rolled out about a week ago. So we have a lot of testing to do and get we should be able to get a lot of advancements for labeling and everything out of this second release, but it is still in the works right now. Anybody that's working on the CAD right now that is for a consultant, you can go on the CAD resources website. What that website will do is it will provide you with a zip file where you can go in and obtain the CAD for consultants. Under the CAD for the consultants, you can get the 1010 workspace, and we also are starting to upload it on ProjectWise for those that are internal. Like I said, the upcoming release I think is going to really help us out. And from my understanding, I've not worked in it currently, but my understanding is it's going to aid us a lot with our naming and labeling and other items that are in this release. Next. Basically what you're seeing here, and I want to point out how complicated utilities can be. This is basically a typical intersection. And what a lot of people never realize is what they see above the ground, there can be as much or more going on underneath the ground. And in this, you see gas, you see sewer, you see power, you see the bases for pedestals for lights, for traffic lights, and everything for street lights. And what we are trying to work forward to is being able to use the 3D modeling, be able to grab all the information that we can through surveys from location survey and all the data from as-built plans. We want to incorporate a method that we can sit here and look at this picture and do a design around what is already there. We know up front what we need to avoid, and it will stop us from having to do a bunch of test holes and trying to locate all these different utilities. Because as I said, you can have a lot of different utilities tied up in a project. And if anybody knows, you look around, you're seeing fiber. Google Fiber is really going crazy up in Raleigh. They're putting in stuff everywhere, and you'll see several instances where we have active projects where they're putting in fiber that they're not supposed to be putting in. So it is, the underground utilities has become an issue over the last several years. It's been an issue, but it's becoming more so of an issue. We're finding stuff that was not there when they do a survey because the project delays and the projects take so long to get pushed out. Stuff gets put in the ground before the project's complete. So as we start doing the utility relocation, we find that stuff. Unfortunately, it causes delays, and we have to go back and make revisions to all the designs. We're hoping that ORD will make that a little bit quicker for those revisions. And now, next slide. And now I'd like to hand it off to Mateen. What he's going to do is he's going to tell you about the present training manual we have. He's going to cover a little bit about that and what's in each chapter, and we'll have some more talk about the modules and training back and forth. So at this point, I'll say take it away, Mateen. Go ahead.
Thank you, John. Hello and good afternoon. My name is Mateen Alanagan. I've been with NCDOT for 2 years and working with NCDOT Utilities Design Field Projects. So I'll start off by going over the training manual. Next. To start off, this is the beta version of the training guide. This beta guide is specifically intended for testing, debugging errors, or false assumptions to improve the guide. Therefore, the use of work in this manual is subject to change. The Utilities Training Manual has been created for users to start from the beginning till the end. Our manual is now chapters while using one project for the entire manual. What we are looking into now is setting up into modules and having each module as an independent item. With that, we will start off with the breakdown of each of the chapters. Currently, we have 8 chapters. Next. So with chapter 1, we learn about project setup, file structure, and file management. We go down to chapter 2. We focus on utility libraries, utilized in the workspace. We define the word feature as a real object that is modeled in OpenRoads for design and analysis. We discuss feature symbology and element templates. Next. In chapter 3, we talk about proposed non-gravity, basically the water lines for relocating the existing water lines, non-gravity utility lines such as water, gas, force main, cables, conduits, or ducts. We also learn how to create an alignment for relocation, create the water line using extract graphics. We learn how to design the profile for the relocation, adding encasement for a portion of the water line, and making a portion of the existing water line to be removed or abandoned. Off to chapter 4 is about non-gravity profiles. It talks about creating profiles and modules and how these steps are identical to any non-gravity lines. A profile is the vertical that you would see, for example, on a grid paper. Once the profile is created, the module uses the profile and alignment to create a model. Once you create the model, that's what creates the 3D model. Next. Chapter 5, we learn how to add valves, fire hydrants, and other appurtenances to the water lines. We also learn how to add gate valves and air release valves without breaking the line. We also learn how to add fire hydrants, meters, and associated service lines. We also talk about marking areas of existing water lines to be abandoned and adding segments of encasement at the road crossings. Next. In chapter 6, we talk about the gravity sewer line. Gives an example of placing 2 new manholes, placing 2 pipes between the 3 manholes. One of the manholes is existing. Also, review and edit pipe profiles. Next. For chapter 7, we discuss the design sheet layout, plan sheets, plan dash profile sheets, and profile sheets. We learn about referencing the name boundaries as established by a roadway engineer. We also generate new utility sheet boundaries sized for plan profile sheets, create named boundaries for water line and sewer line profiles, and we also create water line profile sheets and sewer plan profile sheets. Next. And lastly, chapter 8, we learn about the processes for creating annotations for the utility lines. The annotate element command is used for creating these annotations. Annotate stationing uses ticks and associated labels along the utility alignment. Once you have created the profile and have the plan view, the station values are not shown, but once you annotate it, it will show the value. Next. With that, thank you everyone for your time. I would like to hand it off to Don, and he will take it from here.
Thank you, Mateen, for sharing some of the highlights of the utility training manual. Good afternoon. My name is Don Hampton. I am the Regional Utilities Engineer for the Western Region in the Utilities Unit. I've been working in utilities for the past 15 years, with the last 4.5 years working in the NCDOT Utilities Unit. I'm here today to discuss where the utility unit is heading in regards to ORD. I will be discussing what we are currently doing with ORD and share some things we plan on doing in the future. Next. Our future for ORD with utilities. NCDOT Utilities is currently testing the training manual. We are evaluating the training manual. We're having all utilities engineers complete the training, In March, the utility engineering staff will participate in a 3D training class with a wide range of CAD experience, ranging from less than 1 year to more than 25. This range of experience will give a good evaluation of the training manual. We later plan to publish the training manual to allow us to aid and assist all the private engineering firms in their use of ORD. This will take place after the completion and evaluation of the training manual. We are currently actively working on a NCDOT test projects in ORD. What we're doing, the utility engineering staff is taking 2 completed projects, and we are redoing the utility UBO plans and the utility UC plans in ORD as part of the ORD utilities beta testing. Next. And what we plan on doing in the future, we're going to transition to a module layout. And this will allow each module to stand independent of the others. Each module will allow a more targeted training. Like, for example, once you've completed the training, then this will allow you to go back and you might want to just focus on like a profile section. Instead of redoing the entire training, it will allow you to focus on that particular module to allow you to have a more targeted training. And this will make a more useful layout and get closer to the format that other units are currently using regarding their training. Next. Some of the benefits of ORD. ORD provides a more in-depth and precise designs that are easier to update and modify. Revision time will be reduced, and this will bring better efficiency to the design process. Next. The file management system. We are going to be transitioning to ProjectWise for future designs. What this will allow us to do is have a better overall file management for projects. Within ProjectWise, we will have a managed workspace, and this will be important because as on any particular project, we have a multitude of various disciplines that can be working on the project at any time. And then this will allow us to have real-time updates will occur as other disciplines make changes to their files. We will have a central hub for all project management and designers. This will allow for one location for all the files to be kept on a particular project. And once again, this will allow us to constantly update our files. Next. Next, we want to talk about the class detection and conflict analysis ability within ORD. The class detection is an analytical tool which automates the class detection process. Conflict analysis of proposed changes to save time, eliminate building errors, and reduce project cost. This basically is going to be like an enhanced 3D tool to help identify utility conflicts during the design process. Next. And last is the greater complexity to the survey process. In the future, we would like to use more as-builts for more detailed surveys to improve design. Better information in the details on existing utility locations, prevent the need for additional test holes. And this will more detail, as we have more detailed as-builts with depths of buried utilities during the survey process, along with the class detection and conflict analysis. This all will help us better determine utility conflicts during the design phase for future projects. Next. I would like to thank you for your time and your attention. And before I turn it back over to John, I would like to mention 2 other members on the panel: JT Yoon, Senior Utilities Engineer, Ali Kachecki, the Regional Utility Engineer. John, now I will turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Don. That was great. I appreciate your presentation there. Next. basically what we have here is the link to the external coordination, internal and external coordination, basically a clearinghouse for CAD stuff. If you have any questions or anything, you can feel free to go to this website and reach out. And we also want to let you all know that at any point in time, feel free to reach out to anyone in the unit. Anyone in the utilities unit would be glad to help you. As we get more training under our belt, we will be doing some lunch and learns. We're going to try to advance and assist any way we can. But I wanted to reassure everybody that we're all in the same boat together. Some people, I'm getting calls from project management groups. I'm getting calls from project designers, and they're all concerned that they're behind. And I want to reassure you that everybody's learning this. We're trying to advance as quick as we can, and anything we can do to help that, we will offer to do. It is a vital thing that we keep up the external coordination with all of our private engineering firms and anyone that needs to do utility works, utility designs in ORD, and that's what we're here for. Next. I want to say something about Jeff here. Jeff has been a great tool and resource for running the as an implementation manager. Jeff has provided a lot of internal meetings and assistance. He has been just wonderful to deal with and help us out. And there's a lot of people on this group. And you can always reach out to Jeff. He will forward it to anybody that needs to get that email if you have questions or problems or concerns. And he's basically been the clearinghouse all along for that. But as well, you can feel free to reach out to us. Next. And I wanted to thank the team that you have in front of us here, myself and the others that helped present that. Jeff, as I said earlier, Vaseem has been a great deal of help to me. Ethan has been really involved in this, as well as Robert Garrett. And I want to say a special thanks to Robert Garrett, because without all his hard work on this ORD rollout, the workspace design, the training, and everything, he is the one that's enabled us to keep this moving forward. And really especially wanted to thank him and appreciate his work that he has done for us. He has been the private engineering firm he's been our coordinator consultant with Vaughn and Milton, and he has a lot of background in this. And we look forward to using his knowledge in any way we can as we move forward to create these training manuals and the modules in order to allow everybody to advance. And I also want to give a special shout out to Oak. He has been, lack of better terms, my whipping boy. Anytime I get in the corner, I yell at him and he's able to help me fight out of a hole. And he's been really good about supporting our workspace and assisting along the way. And along with him and the rest of the team here, we couldn't do it without him. It's a team here. I want to remind everybody that if you work as a team and you stay together as a team, and you'll have a better chance at finding an end solution. Going independently sometimes makes it difficult, but as a team, we're open to help any way we can. Reach out to any of us that you see on this panel. We'll be glad to help you. And at this time, I'd like to open it up to questions and just say thank you very much for attending today. If anybody has a question, please feel free to post it in the chat. If our moderator will read the question, or if you want to raise your hand, we'll call you out and you can join in and ask.
Great presentation. Appreciate that. It was
Patty.
very thorough. Looking forward to seeing some of that training manual and working through some of those, seeing how that works.
We have just a little bit left to work on some of that stuff, and then we'll be publishing and releasing that information. And like I said, Patty, we've talked before about getting involved in a lunch and learn, or further have some resources through NCLUG to do lunchtime presentations and everything. And eventually we'll get to the point where we can do that. And I think it would help out everybody as a whole to get that information out there as easy as we can.
Yeah, and I don't know that we've mentioned it, but NCLUG is currently in the plans of putting together a summer conference. And so hopefully we're really working hard to do some hands-on in-person training for that. So hopefully that's something coming down the road too, and hopefully utilities can be part of that. We have a question here from Zachary. Have any of the utility companies started using ORD for their plans?
The utility companies have not, but we have some. Basically, let me explain that. The utility companies provide a set of plans. And so you have, for the dry side, they provide a set of plans to the utility coordinator, and that coordinator will put it into CAD. So you can have anything from CRAN drawings, you can have a sketch, a PDF, and all that stuff to incorporate in. What we're trying to do is get more involved with them and get them to surrender a design that we can put into it easier, faster, and have a more accurate design. But right now, they are not doing it as far as the dry side or the wet side. For the utility construction plans, yes, we have some consultants that are working projects, and we have some division projects that are being worked right now. And it's still in the preliminary phases, but they are currently working on them now.
And Philip commented that he does base mapping primarily, but how will ORD change as far as labeling? They used to use a utility app to label lines for owners and etc. Will that change going forward? Do you know? I guess that's as far as the existing utilities.
Yeah, we basically, when we get the existing utilities in, that's the way it comes from location survey. I don't know. I cannot answer that effectively, but maybe let's see if Robert's on there, if he'll know, or one of the crew from survey, location survey, might be able to speak on that, but I cannot answer that.
Hey, John. I would not expect any significant changes. Obviously, different tools is going to be different buttons, but the general workflow for labeling these things will be very similar.
But hopefully down the road, the future ones will be as-built ones coming from our ORD, which will be 3D.
I want to hit on something like that. What you just said is how important. If we can get all the plans, if you can just imagine right now, all these plans that are being provided and constructed right now. Let's look at the 540 project around Raleigh, or some of the Winston-Salem, or anything of that nature down in Charlotte. If we could figure out a way to take all those plans and combine it into a survey with all the details, which we don't obtain right now. And what I'm talking about is the depth of the power, if they put buried power, if there's any fiber, any of that stuff can be put into a survey. It would be so easy to do clash detection. It'd be so easy when you're modeling, because just like everything that's above ground, you can go put a survey marker on it. You can survey and have the data on the guardrail, on the bridge, and everything like that. If we can get to the point ever down the road that we had all that data from what's buried in the ground from as-builts, it would make this process so much quicker. There would be no going in blind or having to do so many test holes. We keep getting calls for test holes on projects, and it gets drawn out, because the only way you can find it is to dig. And that's the only way you'll determine depth on something that's been in the ground for 20 years. You can catch parts of it, but you won't catch all of it. So we try to highlight that area with a test hole in the area that we have a new water line or sewer or any other power going through there, so that we know where we can relocate it and how deep it is.
We have a question. Will overhead utilities need to be shown on the estimated height, with estimated height, or will we need to get height of existing and proposed poles?
Eventually, my understanding is that we will show the existing and proposed elevation heights, and that'll help with noise wall clearances and everything. But right now, I don't know for sure that we have the capabilities of incorporating that in. Maybe Robert Garrett will speak to that. I know that I've seen some of the designs and some of the details that depict it, but I'm not sure how close we are to that.
Hey, John, there are a number of question marks about overhead utilities. Part of that question is actually policy. What do you want to require? On the technical side of things, the utilities tools from Bentley were specifically designed for the underground. And not so much for the overhead, and that brings with it certain challenges. And so there's some question marks there that we don't know the answer to.
That's kind of what I was thinking, and it's down the road, but like I said, if we can get the more details we get in any set of plans and any design, the more details that we seize right now as a current project's being developed and built, if we can figure out a way to incorporate that into a permanent record down the road, we'll have all that information for new construction 5, 10 years, 15 years from now, and it'll make it a lot easier than relying on go out there and dig and locate that line, or find out a depth in this area, find out a depth where it crosses over here, and we'll see where we can relocate it. And I see somebody in there, Mark. That's great. Mark Ward made a comment.
Well, that leads me to another question. I guess he was saying that Duke is using Open Utility Designer, but is DOT using OpenRoads Designer? You're not using Open Utilities Designer.
We are using OpenRoads. We're using OpenRoads currently, and that's what we're going to go forward with, the same as what all the design units are using, with the exception of structure. And that's basically what we're going to move forward with.
Okay. And what has been done in getting newer utility reports, documents, where they were dropped in new lines that weren't recorded originally, or at least those that are put on a new or delayed project?
Well, basically what we're trying to do right now is anywhere that we've had a lot of projects that have been shelved, and I think this is where you're getting at, is if you shelf a project and anything that comes after that project was shelved, for those that may not be aware or know how it sets up, most all the dry utilities are in there before the project ever lets. We try to get all the dry utilities, all the power, everything's going to be moved ahead of time. Then the wet utilities are inside the contract. So what we run into is we might have a project where they have a utility time of 6 months to a year, maybe even longer, that they'll be working to do the dry utilities, and it takes them that long to get them relocated. Once they get them relocated, the project gets shelved or delayed. What we have to do then is make sure that we're on top of it with the division and district offices, and anything that's being done out in the field gets recorded into our plans, and we have to resurvey if needed to make sure that we get that data in there so that we don't have a problem when we go forward and start with the regular roadway project and doing the wet utilities, with a conflict that, say, wasn't there a year ago, but it is there now because they had to file under an encroachment. So through those encroachments, we can record and get data, and it goes through our offices to know that it's inside this project limits, and we can improve that encroachment and put it in an area, put that utility in an area that will work for us, the existing utilities or proposed utilities, and the roadway design.
All right, great. There's a question here, maybe for Ethan or Bentley rep if they're on, about the open utilities functions. Are they built into ORD that you can maybe utilize some of those tools or something? Like Open Site is built into ORD. I know somebody says that Open Utilities is a completely separate program, but I know that you're working a lot with like the hydro open flow, so there's some probably crossover components, that clash detection and some of that stuff.
I'm sure there is, Patty, but that is above my level of expertise on it. And I would refer to one of those from Bentley. I don't want to steer anybody wrong.
And I see Robert commented that the open utilities from Bentley focuses a lot more on asset management side of things.
Through GIS. Yep.
If anybody else has any questions, please type it in the chat or feel free to raise your hand. We can call on you. Go ahead, Mark.
My question is more, and maybe I might have missed it when I was typing a little earlier. You talked about possibly doing, wanting to have some as-built type stuff, and I'm with location and surveys. So my question is, and I know sometimes it's a matter of cost and different things, but what kind of thoughts were you putting into, getting some as-built after some of the utilities are moved on projects and stuff? I mean, are y'all looking into seeing about getting some surveys on moved utilities and putting them into kind of the database and ORD or something like that?
Correct. That conversation has been opened as to the best way and how we would get recordation of all the utilities that are going in the ground to as they're burying something, give us an elevation and a location. And we're trying to figure out the best way to move forward with that, to collect that data, to retain it, and be able to use it for future projects, or even when we get an encroachment agreement. If we get an encroachment agreement, we can go through and look at that data and use that to tell whether there would be any conflict or where they're at in location to, or in reference to other utilities are on there. So that is in the works. We haven't been too far down that path yet, but that is in the works, and really, honestly, something that I would love to see, because when they're putting that gas line in there, they can say on a set of plans that its average depth is 8 foot, or whatever they want to put, but that doesn't help us if they're 16 over here and they're 3 foot over here, because they run into rock or they run into something else and they don't bury it as deep. So it would be very easy as they're laying that pipeline. Major items would be very easy. Major pipelines to gas pipelines, to just go ahead and measure the depth and identify that depth and turn in some survey data at the end of the project, or at the end of that section being complete, that would be able to be incorporated into the design for future use and for current use, because there's a lot of times where we have to make an adjustment, and a gas company will come in, or power company will come in, and they go to put a utility in the ground, and we have a general idea where they are, but we never know exactly how deep they are. So when roadway comes along and they run into a cross pipe or something that they need to adjust or change a drop inlet, it's quite often it requires a lot of research to find out, well, how close to where they said that gas line would be or power line to be, how close is it to where they depicted it on their plans, because they generally don't provide us with the depth throughout the entirety of the project. So we're wanting to pick up on that, and hopefully that would make it a lot simpler.
We got another question. When modeling existing underground utilities, is there a way to differentiate between the verified known locations and the assumed locations?
Yeah, that's that it would be a long topic to discuss, but yes, it's kind of like the level of service for surveys and everything. Whether it's speculative, whether it has a hard survey data point. So eventually, when we get down that path, I'm sure it'll be incorporated in, so that you know exactly what the level of service for the surveys, the quality of the surveys, and that would be a question for the people over in location survey. But as we look at it now, you have a general idea on how the surveys were done and how accurate they are, and that will tell us whether we need a test hole or don't need a test hole in a lot of cases, and eventually when it's all said and done and we start doing the models of underground utilities, I feel that there's going to be something for sure that's going to tell you what the quality of those surveys are and how accurate the location of it would be.
Great. Any more questions? So John, when in the process is utilities looking to move to ORD, or is that only when the plans are started in ORD? You're not planning
Well,
on
we cannot do anything that was not done before us.
Yeah.
So where I'm going with that is it would be hard for us to do a project in ORD that none of the design or anything was done in ORD. So as we get projects, we've been in scoping meetings and other meetings where they're talking about how do they want to do this? Do they want to work it in SS2, SS4? How do they want to go forward from that point? Are they do they want to start it out new, or do they want to start it out the old way and work forward and then convert the files? That's something that is discussed and will be discussed in future meetings, and I think I heard some of it yesterday as well on how these plans will get worked on. But we can't do anything that wasn't sent to us in ORD really. We plan on having a better knowledge, like it was said early in the discussion. The training and everything should be coming around. Our engineers are taking training, and Robert Garrett's going to be instructing that next month. We're starting the training and work all the way through, and once we get this finalized and all the bugs out of it, we'll be producing a training manual. So the short answer to your question is we can't do it now. We hope to be able to do it in the summer, and those projects that will be done first are going to be bridge projects. If you ask Oak, he's going to say that every project should be ORD. I agree with him, but we're kind of limited as to what we can do right now, and I think the quicker turnaround projects, like some of the bridge projects, will be the first ones that we move forward with in ORD. They'll be start to finish in ORD, or some of them may be converted and then finished in ORD. So it's just a matter of time and where that project is and at what state we can shift over.
Excellent. Are there any other questions? Yeah, Oak's just commenting that every project should be ORD.
I figured that. There's some things I know about him, and I can read
Yeah.
his mind on that one.
Yeah.
And I think I've heard that comment in about every meeting I've been in with him. I mean, honestly, when you're starting a project that's going to be let next year, the year after, or even later this year, I don't see a reason in doing it anything other than ORD, because all that's doing is going to set up for a bunch of conversions and risk during that conversion process to go to ORD that we have issues with the design, and that's the last thing we want to do.
Yeah, I mean, I think we talked internally. I think we can catch the problems on the small bridge projects, and it's manageable. But when projects are on like a longer corridor, like a L, R, or I projects, those things become, unmanageable. Where it would take us a long time to troubleshoot and fix things. But we like to catch those low hanging fruit. If we can fix them real, fast in these smaller bridge projects, which is a little bit more manageable.
And just to hit on what he said about a smaller bridge project, we can have a smaller bridge project where we have, let's say, power, telephone, maybe one water line or sewer line, or maybe not even have all of that. But then when you move to some of these big projects, for our aspect of it, aside from what he's talking about, the full designs and the chance that you miss something when you're converting it over. But when we talk about some of these bridge projects, we can have 2 or 3 municipalities. You can have the city of Sanford, you can have a county water, you can have a township that has water, you can have a private water owner, like Aqua is a private individual water owner that provides water services. So you can have 3 or 4 wet utilities, and then you have gas, and then you have all these fibers and everything else like that. So that trying to get in these big projects where you have so much more going on can be a struggle. Whereas the small bridge projects for us, strictly for us, once you put that bridge on there, the guardrail on there, run your models and everything. I know, Patty, you've done this for years, and as well as I have. I can't count how many bridge projects I've done over the years, but we call them cookie cutter bridge projects. They're very simple. And those are the things that we need to go forward with to advance an ORD and start to finish an ORD. And those are the ones we need to learn on. And it would make it a lot easier for everybody to learn on that than a massive project.
Let's see, somebody commented, moving forward from survey side on existing utilities, you will still be wanting or needing the sides of the fiber and telephone communication lines, such as
Correct.
pair strands.
Yep.
How important is to know these?
That is vital. For instance, I've seen plans where there was a mess up somewhere. I ain't going to blame anybody, but it just says AT&T lines or something, and it turns out to be a major duck bank that everybody else is using. So the only way to determine it is to know exactly what's in the ground and all the details we can gather about that. Because the last thing we want to do is think that it's just one simple line. And everybody talks about a phone line. Okay, you can have a phone line that is smaller than your pinky, and you can have a phone line that's I'd have to get some of the dry utility guys on here to tell me, but they're massive. I've seen them, and if you cut a little 10-inch cross section of that line out, it is very heavy, and you can see all the lines inside. So now with fiber and everything coming along, we really need to know the size of it and if it's placed in a conduit, because your conduit and your encasements that they may use, that size will dictate also what the clearances are and the depth and location of it.
Great. And somebody just commented, definitely differentiate graphics through feature definitions, and additional notes can be added with flex tables.
Correct.
All right. Do we have any other questions? Feel free to raise your hand also. We'll put in the chat box a link to the PDH credit form, but we'll also be sending an email out next week with those if you miss it. There's another question regarding SUE level B. Is the survey responsible for assigning elevations to any utilities that have no as-built information?
Right now, that has yet to be determined how that would be handled. And getting into the dry side is a little bit more involved, as I'm work in the wet side. I usually deal with the big stuff. So I'm dealing with the water and the sewer and all that. So I couldn't really answer that effectively. But going forward, what we would like to see is when that individual utility owner puts it in the ground, is we want to see them back that up with survey. The issue that you run into is it a directional drill? Is it a bore? How did they put that line in, and how accurate would it be? Because some of the drilling apparatuses that we have now can go down underneath the railroad and come back up on the other side, so you have no consistency in it. But we got to detail and get all those details as much as we can. And as far as for the survey responsibility for the surveyor himself, that would come from Location Survey, because they are the one that provide us with all that data for the final survey files.
Hey, John, this is Emery. We've talked about this before. Basically, as far as utilities are concerned, we're still going to do everything exactly the way we do it now. The issue that is an unknown for everybody is the depth of those utilities and how we acquire that. Right now, there's not a good answer for that.
Thank you, Emery.
Okay. Final chance to ask your questions before we wrap this up. We're coming up on the end of the hour. We appreciate all your time and putting this presentation together. I think the collaboration of everybody on the team, that was great.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for having us on here and giving us the platform that we can let the rest of the world know what we're doing as far as utilities and how we plan to move forward.
Great. And just to remind everybody that Thursday afternoon, we're ending with a Q&A wrap-up session. So if any time between now and then you think of more questions, feel free just to send them to that ncdot.org implementation incentive.ncdot.gov email. And then we can answer those on that Thursday afternoon session. So appreciate everybody's time. And hope y'all have a great afternoon.
Thank you all very much. I appreciate your time.
Yep. Thank you, John. Thank you, Patty. Great job.